Good evening and welcome to the Black Ibis Social Club. I'm your host, Alexandru Constantine, and we got Phisto today and a very special guest. After 1 year of being out and not visiting us, the Librarian of Celaeno returns today. How you guys doing?
Hey man, good. Nice to be here. Very lovely to have Librarian with us. I was so excited for this evening. So, yeah.
In the chat, they're asking me to say my last name properly. Konstantin. Okay, it's Alexandru Constantine. Okay, Alexandru Constantine. Makama Alexandru Constantine Chisindin Bucharest, Romania. You guys happy? You happy, Mircea? All right. So I don't know. Librarian, you there? Driving around. Got to unmute yourself.
Doing good. How are you?
Welcome.
We swear
welcome.
this wasn't a ploy, guys. We swear it wasn't a ploy.
We're looking. I've been looking forward to having you back. But welcome. But before we start chatting, I started with a foreign song. If you guys noticed, I mean, listen, we always listen to foreign songs every time. But yeah, I figured that if we listen to foreign songs at the Super Bowl, instead of listening to some gay AIDS-ridden Puerto Rican, we should listen to some Italian neo folk about basically the godfather of Italian fascism. But anyways, that was a Yanua, right? And it's one of my favorite Italian neo folk bands. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Yeah. So welcome, Librarian. I'm happy to have you here. It's been a year, right? I was looking at our schedule, and it's been a year.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
And you've been a busy man. So before we fully start, give everybody a chance to catch up and log on. We had a busy week since last week, right? On our end, you know, we got into our little tiff about fantasy and blah blah blah. Not that exciting. And then Phisto did Phisto things. But in the news, we had the Super Bowl, which we can talk about that later if anybody wants to talk about the Super Bowl. I'm Romanian, so the only football I know is soccer, so I don't know anything about football. And then we had the huge Epstein stuff. So yeah, a lot of stuff. Yeah, Librarian is at the bottom of the sea. He's Sebastian, the lobster, the crab. But I know Go ahead, Librarian.
There's a ton of stuff happening. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So well, let's just start. I'm going to ask you some questions, right? The big thing in our Substackistanian nightmare of a world, right, has been the fact that once again, after every, I think it's become a cyclical, perennial thing, right? The guys on the right turn on each other and everybody's fighting, right? And we had our one of our luminaries, academic agent, decide to do an Alex Kashuta on us and join that club. And you wrote a great essay responding to him. And I will be honest, I'm not going to take sides because I agree with you 100% on it. But I've never been a huge academic agent fan, so I've never really I've listened to his stuff. I think he's been on different podcasts, and I've kind of listened to his some of his movie commentary and that type of thing. But I've never really gotten into it, mostly because I don't like the English. To be honest, I'm not interested in the political thoughts of the British at all. So, and I think that I always find it very odd that British people make careers out of doing American political commentary when they've got so much issues to deal with. I kind of feel the same way about Canadians to a certain degree, but at least Canadians share a border with us. The British constantly criticizing our political our political world is, to me, a little bit ridiculous. So much issues to deal with. So, and I think that's kind of what you said in your Substack commentary. But yeah, if you want to kind of explain what kind of triggered that essay, if you don't mind, for people that are not familiar with it.
So first of all, I didn't really even know who Academic Agent was going into this. I hadn't really encountered his work. I was subscribed to him on Substack, so I must have seen something at some point that I liked, or maybe it was one of those things where, like, they ask you, do you want to subscribe to these other people too? And I just clicked yes, because a lot of other people I was subscribed to liked him. And then Dave Green and Kryptos, both of whom I really like and respect, they both posted a link to this essay by Nima Parvini, Academic Agent, and they posted it on X, and they posted it on Substack. And I read it, and I did not see what they were seeing. They thought it was just this, really brilliant take, and they're smart guys, and I respect them, but I disagree. And I didn't even know, I didn't know who they were talking about. I just read this guy's take without knowing his reputation or anything. And it was basically, Donald Trump and MAGA are lowbrow, and everything on the right online is slop, and these people are destroying the right. And because Donald Trump is, online running his mouth about Greenland, this is destroying the European right. And, we need to escape the slop right matrix and all this, So I wrote an essay about it. And, when I write a critique, I tend to be a little acerbic, And I was thinking, though, okay, I'm calling this guy out. He'll come back. He'll say something to me, and we'll go back and forth. We'll do the thing people do, aggressive debate online. But instead of talking to me, he just starts aggressively posting about me. He keeps referencing what I said without saying I said it, and then just putting a bunch of laugh emojis with it and all this other stuff. And
You're cutting out, man.
So I wrote, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, it's a little weird. Sorry, okay. So yeah, he just eventually he just blocked me, but I couldn't believe this was happening. I was like, this is not. And then I found out he had this reputation, and I'm just befuddled by it. I'm like, why are all these people listening to this guy? I read Charles Haywood, did this takedown of him a while ago, and they got into it, and he blocked into. And from what I can gather, this guy doesn't even identify as somebody on the. That's what caused him to block me. I asked him. I was totally polite with it. I was like, look, for the record, are you right wing? Do you consider yourself a rightist? And he blocked me. So right. I think he's one of these people who comes. Yeah, you hear me again?
Yeah, I think he's. I think we had this, like I said, this kind of perennial trend.
You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. We have this trend where we have commentators like him or Alex Kashuda in the past that are these kind of moderate academic kind of based individuals that have found themselves in the rightosphere, by default, basically, because they've been rejected from the left or the mainstream academic kind of world. And they all kind of get to one point, and one point makes them kind of chimp out, where they're like, oh no, this is one step too far, where I'm no longer, and then we have this over and over and over. It seems like it happens like every 6 months now. And it's exceptionally tiresome to watch as like somebody that's just interested in conversation from everybody. Phisto.
Yeah, it's almost like.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, oh, good, Phisto. Sorry.
No, sorry. I actually got distracted. What was that?
No, I just wanted to see if you had anything to say about that, or if you're familiar with the topic.
No, so it's funny. you guys were talking about that dude, and my experience is very similar to yours, where it's just like, who's this guy? Oh, he sucks. Moving on. Like, it was just. So I've just been enjoying it. I yelled at the guy and insulted him and told me to block me because I wanted one more tally for the, I wanted one more skull for the skull throne, and that's about my extent of contribution to the discourse.
Yeah, he blocked you too, didn't he?
Outstanding. You gotta love being blocked.
I didn't get blocked because I don't follow him, so I don't even know. Like, to be honest, I'm not really interested. He does. Okay, so this is where I want to ask you, Librarian, right? He does have a point, in a way that there is the guys on the right have a massive amount. There is a massive amount of slop on the right, or in the right sphere, and you can see it specifically with stuff like, Candace Owens and the whole turning the whole political thing into this like real crime drama for bored housewives kind of thing that's going on in her world, in her sphere, and that's like. It's really out there, kind of crazy, and we tend to have the perpetual, especially now with all the Epstein stuff coming out. We're attracting the extra crazies, the people that are taking things to the next level of super tinfoil conspiracy theory type stuff. So he does have that point, but yeah, I mean, how do we deal with that?
The thing. Yeah, so all his fans are the slop people. The only reason anybody that I can figure out is listening to this guy is because he hates Jews.
Okay.
And he blames Jews for all, like, everybody who was getting into my comments defending the guy was all, you're a Zionist, you're this and that. That's his crew. Like, he's the slop.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
When I went to go look at the comments, and people are like, you don't understand, Epstein was a Zionist, and he's like, okay, but that's his crowd. So if he's not disavowing them, he doesn't think slop is that big of a problem. But the thing is, like, slop is a problem for the right. That framing, okay? I have no control over what Candace Owens does or what she claims she is.
Right.
Anybody can get on the internet and say, I'm right wing, and here's what right wing people believe, and it's the debate equivalent of, like, high fructose corn syrup. And there's no point in, we got to police this. How? There's not any way to do it. The only way, this is what I point out at the end of my essay, if you don't like slop, make stuff that isn't slop. Right. That's the only thing you can do. I have no power over the rest of this stuff. And, like, my main beef, he was, like, not very specific about what he considered slop. He was just throwing out all the spades, like, there's too much slop stuff. And the only name he mentioned was Matt Walsh. And when he said Matt Walsh, I understand a lot of people think Matt Walsh is kind of lowbrow. Matt Walsh is not intellectual. Matt Walsh is not getting in there and talking about, Ebola or, post-liberalism or anything like that. But what Matt Walsh does do is actually go out in the real world and get results. Matt Walsh has notches on his belt. And it bugs me, like, on a visceral level, when people who just sit around and talk and who have the most timid possible, like, the other thing he was saying was, this is going to destroy right-wing ideas for a decade. Like, putting right-wing ideas into practice is going to destroy right-wing ideas, is his basic theory. He's so timid and so housebroken and so cuffed by academia that he just runs in fear. And Matt Walsh doesn't. And that's why he hates Matt Walsh. Not because Matt Walsh is slop. It's because Matt Walsh is brave and he is not.
He's actually doing something.
Yeah.
Well,
yes, I thought that was the best. Sorry, I thought that was the best point that you made, and it stood out to me immediately that the only name he brings up is somebody who's actually doing things, as opposed to just talking about things.
Yeah,
which is a very academic. Oh, great, fantastic! Aren't you amazing?
Right. So, do you guys remember back in the day when there used to be that saying about libertarians, that libertarians are conservatives that want to be invited to parties? to liberal parties. Do you guys remember that joke? Right? It's like a libertarian is just a moderate conservative that holds some, like, basically a liberal that holds some conservative party ideas but doesn't want to say it, so he gets invited to. I think that used to be a saying on the left, that like guys on the left used to accuse, every group of like liberal college guys I used to know used to have like one libertarian who would be like, oh, I'm a free market libertarian, and like, you're just a conservative that wants to come to parties and hang out with the blue-haired girls, and in a way, the same kind of vibe comes off of a lot of these people, where the ideas that they espouse, whether it's right-wing stuff, nationalism, or any of these ideas, are strictly academic for them. They're strictly exercises in theory. They're theoretical. They're just book ideas. And as soon as they see them in practice, whether it's through the ICE stuff or basic legal enforcement, for example, they freak out. They're like, oh no, we can't actually do stuff. We're not allowed to do stuff. And it's such an absurd concept, it's so insane to me.
But for a lot of these guys, so here's the dynamic. It's kind of like, so what happens to a lot of these guys when they start out is they got all their liberal buddies and they're doing whatever. Then they have, for whatever reason, some kind of heterodox idea. Either they did it by accident, like they used the word Chinaman or something when they weren't supposed to, or they don't support trans people or something like that. And then the mob just turns on them. And it just destroys their whole self-image, because they just get validation from these circles of people. And so they need that validation. And so it's kind of like those cosplay girls. They're not getting enough attention in their day-to-day life. So they dress up like Sailor Moon and they go down to the con. And here's all these thirsty nerds. Oh, you're so hot. I love you. That's literally because they know they'll get that kind of attention from the right. Because all you have to do is come down from academia or the media or something like that and just throw out like a few right-sounding ideas. I don't think Donald Trump is the devil. Well, he's one of us. And they will just embrace you and run with you. But you don't really like the right. You don't really like these people. They're like your rebound or whatever. And so sooner or later, you feel a need to distance yourself from them. This happens over and over and over again. You see this with people like Steven Pinker, and you see this with people like Jordan Peterson, and the guru of the week. The guy shows up and, whoa, he's one of us, and then he's just totally not.
Right, absolutely. And I think that one of the problems that we have, and one of the issues, is that there's a very distinct kind of intermixing of two different worlds, right? Where in the world, in the pre-internet world, so like what we're doing right now has a level of like parasocial engagement, right? We're talking live on a stream. There's people commenting, and what they do is absolutely parasocial with their YouTube channels, their different channels, and that kind of stuff. But in the previous world, the academic world, an academic could put out their ideas in a book or essays or something, and kind of like leave them out there and not really engage with the people that the idea specifically inspire, or not have to engage with the pros that take up these ideas. They can still go to their parties and stuff, but we've kind of crossed the streams of becoming a strictly an academic exercise and almost a political organizational like group exercise, which is what these YouTube channels and this stuff does. And I think a lot of people try to play both worlds, where like, here's my ideas, but if we take them to the extreme, or if we actually meet the people that like my ideas, ooh, it's icky, it's too much, and I think that's what we're seeing a lot here, where these guys they like the idea of being above it all and not really part of the down to earth kind of interaction with people, because let's be honest, right? Whether you're talking about like left-wing stuff or right-wing stuff, or you're talking about religious groups like your church or anything like that, a vast majority of the people in those groups are going to be normies. They're going to be normal people that are often retarded, for better or worse, right? Where
Yeah.
like, and especially when you get into much more complex issues, you're going to deal with people that are, you know, they're just dudes, you know, or women, and it's going to like, we're not all dealing with intellectual equals or that have the same level. So it's rough. I actually understand where I don't understand where he's coming from, because I think this whole passive aggressive thing he did towards you is absolutely like bitch made, and I agree with you on that one. But I do understand that like you're gonna have to interact with people at different levels, and some people are Candace Owens people, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
Alex, I have a story from this week I want to share that I think illustrates part of this problem. So this week I went to my very first meeting of the local Republican Party, and I was the youngest guy there by decades, at least a minimum of 10 years younger than anyone else in the room, right? So, which shouldn't be surprising. I live in a rural town. Everybody here is old as dirt, right? The dude that's been doing it is like
real fast, Phisto. I'm sorry, man. Hey, Librarian, I think we're getting a lot of background noise from you.
Yeah. Still?
Yeah. Now you're good.
Yeah, I should have been. Yeah. Magic. Okay, I don't know what happened. It wasn't any different, so I don't know.
It's weird.
Yeah. Anyway, long story short is I'm talking to these people, and they're everyday average people. No one that anyone of an intellectual, you know, bent is going to want to talk to. And when it was all over, one of the women asked me my opinion on Russia. She had found out that I was a social studies teacher and I was into history and, you know, blah blah blah. And that question could be super cringe because it's coming from, you know, a swamp dweller in Southwest Florida, right? It's just like, oh God, what conversation am I about to get into? She was actually very insightful and very bright, and we had a nice, you know, 10-minute conversation about all kinds of things. And this is the thing, like, you're going to have to talk to people. You're going to have to talk to normal people. And when you do, you're going to run into these gems, and it's going to be like, oh shit, why have I been such an asshole this entire time? You know? And that's what a lot of people just don't want. Like, oh, what if they make me look bad? What if I get the normie pleb slop on me? You know, it's ridiculous. Anyway.
Well, yeah.
No, go ahead, Librarian.
So it's a status thing. It's not really about advancing ideas. It's, you know, I'm playing games with ideas, and the game, I get this edgy idea, and oh, look at this guy, he believes in human biodiversity, or he believes in what, and then when it comes to actually implementing it, where you would have to engage with other people who you don't see as being on your level or whatever, all of a sudden now that's going to like take away your status, and it's a very effeminate way of thinking about things, honestly.
Right.
Like if you're a man and you're on the right and you believe in hierarchy, you believe in elite. An elite is an elite because he's at the top of a chain. But you're only at the top because the rest of that chain exists. And you have to take that into account and take care of those people and help those people and acknowledge them and do things for them for your position to be sustainable. And just ignoring them or having the idea that, oh, their low status is going to rub off on me, like this lame guy is talking to me and I don't want to be seen with him and stuff. It's basically that level. It's very feminine. It's completely off-putting. And I don't like it.
Absolutely.
You know,
Hey, Librarian, when you're not talking, just mute your mic, because I think your mic is picking up stuff when you're not talking. But otherwise, you sound perfectly fine. So when you're talking, it sounds great. But when you're not talking, like right now, okay. No, you're absolutely right. And there's a level of lefty thought in this whole thing, right? Which is the idea of, like, you know, kind of this purity spiral where we all have to basically agree. Now, you know, me and Phisto, we're not really a political podcast. We're not really a political show. We talk about politics occasionally. And I know for a fact that we probably disagree with each other on politics. I know me and Phisto disagree on a lot of stuff. He's a lot more pro Americanism than I am, for example. Like I'm a complete non-interventionalist when it comes to everything, and Phisto is a lot more.
I'm working to get you deported.
Yeah, he's working to get me deported. Right. That's the whole scheme of this podcast. It's deport Alex. Deport Alexandru Constantin back to Bucharest. And I'm like, oh my gosh, at least I get a free ticket. How expensive just to fly across the Atlantic right now.
It is actually a scam to get you a free ticket home, which is something you actually want. So it actually works out for both of us.
I know. I've been
needing politics in action, my friends.
Right.
There it
praxis.
is. Everybody gets what they want.
That's right-wing praxis right there. But
praxis
ultimately,
is superior to theory.
Right. Ultimately, like in just the Substack sphere, for example, like I am a huge fan of John Carter of Mars, but he's not a Christian, and we disagree on that. And I still absolutely listen to and respect, and I want to be associated with him because I respect his opinions. We have conversations with tons of Roman Catholics. We have conversations with tons of people that are, have different ideas than us. And that's okay, because overall, we're all, to a certain degree, we're all trying to make our world, our village, everything better. Right. And, the idea of going, that guy's icky, or I don't want to deal with that, or those proles are stupid. That's absolutely nonsense, because like I'm going to take it back. I was kind of dissing on Candace Owens, right? And look, if you listen to some Candace Owens stuff, some of it is out there, like ludicrous to beyond ludicrous. I can't even imagine a word, right? But ultimately, right, the people that listen to her are well-intentioned people that that are like upset about the way things are. They're upset about the way things turned out with the whole Charlie Kirk thing. They're upset about the what's his name, the Epstein stuff, and the reaction to it might not be the reaction I agree, for example, but at the same time, I'm not going to counter signal or turn my back on somebody. I have a friend, a coworker that is actually quite a big fan of Candace Owens, and he's always telling me about the latest Candace Owens stuff. And I think my wife is actually a fan of Candace Owens, and occasionally like share stuff that she says or does. And I'm like, no, I get it. Okay. I understand what she's doing. I understand what she's saying. Ludicrous, but nonetheless, I agree with it. I agree with the point of it. Right. And I don't like the whole purity spiral stuff, and I really don't like the craziness that, this supposed non-slop fan base of this dude who's trying to not be sloppy came after you, Librarian, like in a completely ludicrous and childish manner. And I'm like, okay, dude, that's the sloppiest thing you can do, blocking people and posting emojis. That's completely absurd, man.
Yeah, it was really lame. Like, I thought this guy was going to like try to roast me and come after me and write his own response essay. And it was just, this guy isn't worth my time. But he doesn't say that to me. He just says it about me on X. Like, it's embarrassing. Like, I just couldn't imagine a grown man acting like this. I don't know why he's doing it. And so like, I think I said, I'm in awe at what a gay wad this guy is. Like, seriously, like, this is like the lamest behavior you could possibly engage in. And there's so many people. So what you were saying about like John Carter and stuff, there's a whole bunch of people out there who I think I call them like 80%ers or 90%ers, where it's like 80-90% of what this guy's about, I agree with, and the 10% I don't. And he's well thought, and he's a solid guy, and I know him, and I'm not going to, like just break with this guy over these differences we have, which are relatively small, and maybe ultimately over time we'll iron out. There are people that, don't share my beliefs, but I hold out hope for them. And I try to differentiate between them and the people who just have nothing going on. They're either just online grifting, or they're online, Jew, or something else like that. There's just no talking to these people. That's all. That's it. That's all they got. With Candace Owens, you know, she does have a lot of well-intentioned people. Her audience, for the most part, I would say, are people who want the world to be a better place and would probably vote or support policies or a lot of the same kinds of things I would want. And I think if they, for the most part, got their way, the world would be a better place. But she just seasons it with this spicy nuttiness, like, for lack of a better word. Like it's
this true crime like vibe, and you know what? I guess that's what gets the women involved, right?
That's a part of it. Who really killed Charlie Kirk? Like, you saw it on TV, like, who killed him. Why are you trying to do and then to do all that to a guy she knew, and it's just bad. So, but again, I can't police her. She's her own person. She's got obviously a way bigger audience than me. If I was like, oh, she's flop, let's get rid of her. How?
We're gonna shun her. We're gonna turn our backs.
Yeah.
Shun her.
Without my support, she's through.
Right. It's like, yeah. I'm gonna write her a stern letter. I'm gonna write a post denouncing Candace Owens. She's never gonna see.
I'm gonna get all 9,000 of my subs to block her. That'll put a dent in her audience.
Perfect. That'll show her.
Yeah.
But it's anyway. It's lame. So in 6 months from now, we're gonna get the next person that's gonna trip out on us. We can start taking bets in the chat. Who's the next right winger that's gonna denounce all of us because we're not cool enough? The reality of it is, like, people like that should know better. We should know that, like, we live in like a 12-day turnaround. The interesting thing is, like, the ICE thing is already old. It was like the topic du jour like 2 weeks ago, and everybody cared. And now I think everybody already forgot who that lesbian woman that got killed was, and the whole nurse guy that got killed was. It's all over. Like, nobody even remembers it. That was like it could be like a year ago.
Yeah, as far as stories go, it was pretty good from what I remember.
Yeah, it's already over. We've moved on to Epstein stuff and the Super Bowl nonsense, which is already like, that lasted about 72 hours of internet time. And yeah, it's just, come on, man. Like, it's ultimately it's a giant WWF match to a certain degree, and that's an insult to the WWF, to be honest. Yeah. The interesting thing is, and I actually kind of wanted to mention that the stupid Super Bowl thing, right? Because, look, all right, I didn't watch the Super Bowl. I didn't watch the halftime show. I have no idea who any of those people are. And this is not me being like, I'm not one of those like, oh, sports ball, or any of those kind of guys, right? I understand why people like sports. I'm on board with people doing sports and enjoying sports and all that thing, right? I'm just, I grew up as an immigrant. I never watched football. I actually don't really like football. Like, I tried to get into football. I just didn't really enjoy it. I find it's a little bit too slow for me. I've always been more into like women's volleyball and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of like, I like tennis, guys. I'm an aristocrat. Okay, I like tennis and that type of thing. But I found it really interesting that once of like the discourse around the whole Super Bowl thing is absolute slop, right? Like, we've gone into this cycle of like people take thing and make it hateful towards one group of people on purpose, and then they pretended they're shocked when people don't like it. It's just like, it's this thing, right? Like, it's such a predictable, boring thing nowadays. Like the whole what's that movie by Christopher Nolan that's coming out? It's like, you know what you're doing, bro. You're gonna piss off people by making like Helen of Troy some African chick, right? So it's ultimately like, it's corny to even do it. It's corny to like talk about it. The whole thing is freaking corny. But I noticed one thing people on both sides didn't mention, right? And I think a lot of people misunderstood something, right? And I think, Phisto, you'd appreciate this because this is kind of your way. the guys on the left are like saying, "Oh, this is a huge change in like the America and blah blah blah." You know, we had like some Hispanic guy, you know, with AIDS doing all kinds of stuff. I think the dude's got. I think he posted his like HIV like viral load on Twitter or something like that. I don't know. Don't quote me. Whatever, if he did it or not. But and ultimately, the guys on the right are like, "Oh no, there was no American flags, or it was an insult to Americans, or whatever." I don't even care, right? The reality of it is that it's neither. It was neither of that, right? It was ultimately a display of empire, and that's exactly what it is. It was, you know, it's not a win for the left. It's not a win for the nationalist, traditionalist right either, but it's not a win for the left. It's a win for the neoliberal, you know, American empire, right? Because everything is America. And that's what a lot of the Europeans, and I've seen you, Librarian, get into this with a lot of the Europeans and Canadians. It's like, we don't think about you guys. You are part of our distant empire. And all that Super Bowl thing was, it was the equivalent of like the Roman Empire dragging some like ratty ass elephant from the far colonies, you know, to the Colosseum, and, you know, like having the Roman senators go, "Ooh, a mysterious creature from the far continents," or something like that. Or the equivalent of you know how they used to do like the Chicago, what was that thing called, the fair, the World Fair, where they would like bring some like African tribe and some Amazonian tribe and put them on display. That's all that was.
Human,
okay,
called them, yeah.
You know what I'm saying, right? That's all it was, right? It wasn't this like win for Puerto Rico. First of all, it's like, listen, if your culture is like jiving to like sugarcane or whatever, that's a pretty sad culture to begin with. But that's not the point. The point is that it was ultimately a display of the wealth and power of the American neoliberal global empire, that we can take these indigenous people that represent their far-flung cultures and, you know, parade them in front of our people. Yeah, there's a demoralization element towards our own out group, which is, you know, us, I guess, or Americans. But at the same time, like, it's not this win for multiculturalism. All it is, it's just it's a minstrel show. That's all that was. It was a minstrel show, and the liberals that are celebrating this diversity are deluded, and if they think that it wasn't anything but a minstrel show.
The worst thing about it too is that anybody who thinks it was a legitimate celebration of multiculturalism, guys, the people behind this will shank the shit out of you the moment it is convenient for them.
Right.
And that's what the NFL is doing. It's looking to the future, and it's trying to make sure it has a market share and that it goes bankrupt a little less fast. It's a complete cynical. There's nothing redeeming in this. I mean, my God, it's a football game in 2026. Like, there's no hometown team anymore. It's all just mercenaries, and it's all just bullshit anyway. So, yeah, completely agree.
Do you have any opinion on that, Librarian?
So that was my whole thing with the only point I was making about it. I don't watch football either. I just don't find it interesting. I never have. But what was interesting to me about the phenomenon was you have, you know, I made a note that got like a whole bunch of views on it because people were like, video game nerds, you know, they're trashing our hobby. You know, these woke people coming in, you know what, we're going to fight back. We're going to create this movement, Gamergate, all this stuff. And then, you know, the Star Wars nerds, well, they trash Star Wars. We're not watching it anymore. Forget that. But then, you know, the sports ball people are like, you know, hit us harder, keep abusing us. We'll watch anything you put out, no matter what you do. You know, it's just, there's like no fight back at all. They complain about it, but they will not do anything else but watch it. And a lot of people, like Vox Day, for example, I saw he posted, and I don't think he was responding to me. I don't think he reads me, but he was saying like, anybody who uses the term sports ball is like a total gamma because that means you didn't play sports when you were young, and the reason people watch football is so they can, like, you know, appreciate the like aesthetics of like top level play and all this stuff. And I was like, sports ball, when you criticize sports ball, you're criticizing the consumerism and the commercialization and the total commodification of this game that's supposed to mean something, you know, in terms of sportsmanship and exercise and all stuff like that. sports ball is the enemy of sports. I think everybody should play sports. Everybody should exercise. Everybody should do something. What you're talking about with that is you're just talking about people sitting on a couch watching other people do things. You've created this voyeur society, and that's true of sports. That's true of relationships. That's true of everything. We just everything's through a screen. Nobody does anything. And when I say sports ball, that's what I mean. I hate that whole culture.
Absolutely.
You ask somebody like, "What are you into?" I'm totally into football. He never means I play it. He only ever means I watch it. It's something to be consumed. It's not something to be done. And I wrote one of my first essays was about that, about John F. Kennedy back in the 1960s saying, "I hope we never become a nation of spectators." And sure enough, that's what we've become. And I think that's bad.
Absolutely. And I think Vox Day, I mean, I'm familiar with Vox Day. I used to read his stuff way back in the day. And, in a way, he's like, I think he's a Gen Xer, but he's kind of, he has some proto boomer kind of mentalities. And yeah, I think people like that misunderstand the critique of sports ball, right? The critique of sports ball comes from Christopher Lasch, actually, from Christopher Lasch's
Culture of Narcissism.
Culture of Narcissism, which was probably the best. There's an entire chapter section of that book on sports. And when I read it, I was like, I get it. This is why I don't like it. And because I always used to feel kind of conflicted by my dislike of sports ball, where like, why don't I like it? I like sports. I like weightlifting and I like running and I like, I even like playing team sports with friends. I just have no interest in watching people play sports. Right. And I remember when I was a little kid, I was a little immigrant kid and we like soccer in Romania, right? We like football. And I remember, I think when I was in middle school, the Romanian World Cup team was doing really well. And, it had like our Michael Jordan of soccer, basically, which was Haji. And it was, he was a team captain and they were winning real well. And, they ended up not winning, but anyways, they did pretty good. And I remember watching with my dad and getting really into it. And I was like, oh, I get it. Because these are the people that are like me, they're like my people. Right. And I never understood why Americans, for example, cared about football, because the people that are playing the game are not them. They don't represent them at all. I lived in San Diego for a while, and people in San Diego are huge, San Diego Chargers fans. And they like everything's Chargers out there. They all wear Chargers jerseys and stuff. And when I was living there, the Chargers decided to, we're going to move. We're just going to move. Like, peace, we're going to move San Diego. And San Diego freaked out. They're like, oh, no, you can't leave and all this stuff. And then it ended up bribing the team with a new stadium or something. And they ended up staying. But to me, I was like, oh, that's just so gross. That's just such a gross, mercantile way of doing things. And I remember that was around the same time I actually read Christopher Lasch for the first time. And I was like, oh, I get it. Like, the idea behind sports is that you support your team and they're your people, but the corporate element of it has made it such a spectator thing that, watching sports is no different than really just, simping for Star Wars and the next Star Wars slop, right? It's the same thing.
A great word. It just encompasses the whole phenomenon.
Right. And it is wild to me that people get, like, I just don't get it. I mean, like I said, I understand the cultural element of, back in the day on Thanksgiving, you sat around with your, what's interesting, moving to the South, the NFL is not a big deal. Like, when I grew up in Los Angeles, it was all about the Raiders, and everybody was into the Raiders, and the Raiders moved like 7 times while they were there anyways, and it was just like, oh God, Raiders people, somebody's going to get murdered at this game because people get murdered just going into the Raiders store.
Raiders, baby.
Raiders. Yeah. But and then like they moved to like San Francisco for a while. They moved to just to Oakland and all this stuff. It's just nonsense, right? I just never understood that mindset, and I never got it. But then we moved to the South, and the South is not really an NFL watching culture. I've noticed that the Southerners are a lot more into college football,
So,
like everybody out here has got the Gamecock thing going on, the little chicken or whatever. I think that's South Carolina. I don't know what college that is.
So yeah, it's from the Revolutionary War. There was a general, but I lived in South Carolina for 5 years, and that was like, in South Carolina, there's no meaningful distinction between SEC sports, low church Protestantism, and the Republican Party. Like they're all one united phenomenon. Like they don't, and they understand on an intellectual level that Jesus didn't play college ball, but they know that he would have. And I used to joke with the kids in my class, like I would do like a mock sermon when we were talking about like the second great awakening or whatever, and I'd be like, God is throwing you the path of salvation, but you must receive it. And they would all laugh because they had all heard some version of that. Like that's just how they communicate. And if you aren't into that, they just see you as completely strange. Like they'll like, so what do you think about Gamecocks this year? Well, I don't really watch them. Well, what do you think about the Gamecocks? They'll ask again, like you're slow or something. You don't speak English. And it's just they're nice people. They're great people, solid neighbors, solid citizens. But that's their world. They don't go beyond that.
Yeah, I don't understand. The one thing I don't understand is that people that are into college sports but have never been to that college before.
That bugs me. That actually makes me kind of, because I'll sit there. Among other places, at one point I went to the University of Georgia, and it was one of my happiest experiences of my life. I loved UGA. It was great.
That's the Bulldog one, right?
Bulldog, yeah. I'm part of the Bulldog Nation. I bleed black and red. My daughters are half Bulldog. But I meet all these people all the time. I'll mention I went to UGA. What about them Bulldogs? I'm like, did you go there? Well, shut up. It's like somebody. It's like if I was walking around in a shirt that said like U.S. Marines, and where were you in the Marines? Oh, I wasn't in there. I just
just wearing the ranks and stuff. Yeah.
I mean, sergeant. I like to have opinions about it. Like, okay.
Yeah, it's just the weirdest thing. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I felt about the whole thing. It's just literally like, I think that to get into it and to think like to get too deep into it, you're looking a little bit too low. The whole point is we're looking at a mass cultural money-making element.
Yeah.
And the whole concept of pissing off the righties and pissing off the lefties, that's part of the game, when these people stop, you'll see some of the commentary going, I can't believe the NFL pissed off like half the country. You know what? You really think they didn't know that? You don't think that they specifically did that on purpose so you could talk about it? Like, you don't think that it's part of the entertainment package that they're selling you? Because you yourself are entertained by being pissed off at some Puerto Rican dude,
Yeah.
Like
how long before the NFL is reorganized and the conferences are dished out based on who your city voted for in the last presidential election?
Right.
How long before that happens, where it's broken down? You've got the blue conference and the red conference.
I think what you're saying is that the NFL will become like a political entity, but I think that politics are already the NFL, so it's it's already the same thing,
right? Yeah, it's just officially writing it down as opposed to
right
what is in fact.
Well, I remember a WWE storyline where Donald Trump was going to buy the WWE from Vince McMahon, and of course he didn't want to sell. And there was all this drama throughout the wrestling season. And of course, the only way you're going to settle this, is WrestleMania. And then somehow it also got in there that the loser was going to get his head shaved. And so, Donald Trump chose his proxy wrestler, and Vince McMahon chose. I showed my students this. I was like, this is the president of the United States here, 2006 doing this. And
Gosh.
so the real question isn't, is football going to be politicized? The real question is how long before, that's actually who they just pick, how they choose the president. You pick your team and I pick mine, and we coach them all season, and whoever wins,
Right. It's so absurd. But what's interesting is some of the absurdities around it, like this whole thing on X, on the lefty kind of sphere, which is like, oh, Spanish is how did Spanish, the language of the conquistadors who conquered the entirety of South America, Central America, the Caribbean, and huge parts of even North America, how did that become the language of the oppressed, the language of rebellion? It's like Spanish.
You
Spanish?
You go to Mexico, and there's actually still Mayans there that live in like the Yucatan and Chiapas near Guatemala and stuff, and they actually are oppressed. And some of them don't even speak Spanish.
Yeah, they're oppressed by Mexicans.
You gotta come to America before you can be oppressed.
Guys. Did anybody tell them who spoke Latin originally? I feel like that may shock some people,
right?
When it comes to the oppressors,
it's like the indigenous language of the Americas, Spanish, because Spanish is the indigenous language of. No, come on, guys. We're reaching levels of pure illiteracy and ahistorical stupidity that is absolutely just painful. It's just painful to even like absorb, right? I actually wanted to tell a kind of a cool side story real fast. I might have told this one before. Many years ago, I was in the military, and I was out doing like medical stuff for like a field operation. It was like a training exercise thing, and we had a bunch of reservists with us, and one of the reservists was this old Native American dude, right? He was this old crusty Native American Navy chief, and he was a construction guy, and he was he was Native American, but he was like a Mexico Native American, basically, like from down south, like some Aztec or whatever. And I was standing around like chain smoking cigarettes like I used to do back in the day. And there was this guy with me, and he was a total shit lib of immense proportions. And he starts going off on this, like the oppressed Aztecs and Cortez. It was around Columbus Day. So he goes on the Columbus Day rant, your Thanksgiving Columbus Day rant. And he goes on this stupid rant. And out of the corner of my eye, I see this old Native American dude walking towards us. Cause he like something piqued his interest in the conversation. And I was like, my first thought was like, damn it, I don't not want to get into it with this guy. I don't feel like having Chief over here powwow all over this conversation. I was just like, I'm not in a mood for this nonsense, right? And he comes up, and I'm expecting this guy to absolutely take the side of the shit lib. That's what I'm prepping myself for. And he goes the exact opposite. He's all like, Cortez was a hero. He brought the Virgin Mary to our people and protected us from the demons that were the Aztecs. And that's why my tribe joined up with the Spanish to defeat the evil demon worshippers and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, nice. Nice. I was like, I misjudged you, bro. Yeah, apocalypto ending movie part, awesome. And it cracked me up because there's no nuance to it. There's no nuance in the story. But I do want to ask you guys, kind of move on to the next topic because I'm very interested, which is the other big news situation, which was the file dump and the whole island and the thing. I don't even want to say it. The what's his name? Epstein stuff, right? And
what's his name?
Yeah, dude, my brain is not even here. I don't want to get into the details because to be honest, I will fully admit that I have not read the files. I've read only stuff some people have shared here and there. I've actually did a little bit of like, I'm an addict. Okay. I listen to, what's his name? Jay Dyer a lot. So he's been on an Epstein thing and he's been sharing all the files, and I find it, interesting. My wife is a lot more committed to parsing the files and getting into it, and just the constant horror shows of it. And I will admit that, like, I just don't know. I don't know what's true. I don't know what's false. I don't understand this, but there does seem to be a tendency, and I've seen it. And I think today in Substack comments, you got into some crazy posting, Librarian, where you tend to have some guys that are like, they're going back to 2016 Fed posting level type stuff, and it's just like, ultimately unhinged stuff. And I think, how do we approach this? How do you, from your opinion, guys, how do we approach this situation, and what can we take out of it? How do we move forward, and how do we approach this without being absolute retards about it, and falling for every back alley idea or tinfoil thing, and look at it in a very, like, I think we need to look at it in a very objective way. But what would you recommend, Librarian?
Epstein, there is nothing more slop than 99% of Epstein content. There is a core, interesting, sad element to the story where you have this man who was this grifter who ingratiated himself with rich and powerful people and fed off that to engage with other rich people, and just built these networks and just used that to abuse a whole bunch of young girls. Some of the slop discourse is, well, they were all, the BAP stuff, they were all 17, so technically it's okay. No, first of all, it's not. And second of all, some of the girls were 14, so it's disgusting to even try to phrase it that way. But then, of course, there's this wider thing where any day now, these revelations are going to destroy somebody, And Donald Trump, he takes a lot of blame for this, because 2016 he gets elected, and we're going to drop, during his presidency, we're going to drop these files, we're going to reveal all this stuff about the Clintons, and then of course nothing came out. And then Joe Biden takes over, and he's got all the same files, and it's, we're going to reveal Donald Trump, and nothing happens. So by the time Donald Trump's running again, and he's like, we're going to release the files this time, it's like, there's nothing in there. There's nothing in there. If either side could be embarrassed by this, it would have already been done, And so then the discourse becomes, well, the reason why neither side released it is because behind the scenes, there's the Jews controlling him. And Epstein was this elite Mossad agent and like I've been pointing out all day today, even if you assume that Mossad is this like omnicompetent world power or whatever, they're not going to use a guy like Epstein, who just cannot keep his name out of the news, and who is infamous even before his arrest for his like vicious personal habits. You don't want your spy to be more blackmailable than the people you're going after. Like the story that makes sense is that he's a grifter, and he was really good at pretending to be this extremely powerful, influential guy. But because he was so good at that, and because this aura just developed around these files for so long, now that core story that actually is important to know about the abuse and trafficking of these girls, that gets subsumed by this mythology, this just all-encompassing, once we figure out Epstein, we're going to reveal the whole global network of satanic reptilian lizard people, Jewish pedophile. It's never going to happen. It's just slop discourse.
Right.
Going on and on and on about it. I mean, I probably could have written an essay about it. I don't want to add to the slop pile. Right. I'm not touching it,
No, I agree with you, man. I agree. And I agree without diminishing, some of the things that are in there. Yeah. And there's absolute truths in there.
Yeah.
But I think that this is a Hannah Arendt thing. Okay. This is what we're talking about here. Right. And for you guys that are not familiar with Hannah Arendt, she was a journalist that, she basically, she wrote on the Nuremberg trials, and specifically on basically kind of like the personalities of some of the people that were accused of all these, heinous Holocaust crimes. And she got a lot of flack from the anti-Nazi kind of like crowd, where she basically said that stop making these guys into these super villains. They're just boring ass people, you know. They're boring, banal people, you know, and they did boring, banal things. And I think that's what I'm seeing in this thing is these guys were all losers. And I think the hardest pill to swallow, and then I think a lot of people are not going to admit this, the hardest pill to swallow is that our rich and powerful people like what's his name, Microsoft bro,
Bill
and all
Gates.
these guys, Bill Gates, are absolute disgusting losers, right?
Yeah.
That we crave a good villain, okay? We crave these like masterminds, these like Mossad super agents that are like the Illuminati running the world secretly, but they're all corny freaking losers, you know? And yeah, of course
they taught us to expect eyes wide shut.
Right.
It is not that. It is a Star Wars after party.
Right. Exactly. And I bring it back often, and I think a good illustration of this is, you know, my favorite bit of media ever, you know, my favorite bit of like television is True Detective. And True Detective season 1 does a really good job of kind of illustrating this, where it shows that evil is really gross, that it's not eyes wide shut. These people are not these super classy masterminds. Some of them believe that they are, but they're all ultimately losers. They're ultimately gross degenerates that do gross degenerate things. Like you're telling me that like somebody that's like a billionaire like Bill Gates has to have some like low level pimp like Epstein. He can't do it himself. He can't fly to like Monaco or something like that, or I don't know, somewhere in Thailand or something, and pick up all the underage yet legal children he wants, you know? Like he has to do it like on some crappy like island without running water. What an absurd kind of concept, right? You can live like somebody with that amount of money can go buy human beings in like Africa if they wanted to, you know, some third world country, and they have to, you know, it's ultimately just, it's kind of pathetic when you think about it, right?
If you the people that are hyping up the Epstein mythology, like you were saying about movies, their whole idea of how power works, no matter how much they've actually researched it, comes from movies. You know, like I pointed out with Parvini, you know, it's like this guy's a Shakespeare scholar, and the only imagery he can think to draw on to explain his ideas through 2 separate essays is The Matrix. You know, these people watch The Bourne Identity, they watch, you know, Eyes Wide Shut, they watch The Matrix, and that's what they think reality corresponds to. And when it doesn't, when it's just these schlubs, you know, who are just kind of pathetic, who are good at making money, but when that's the reality, they don't want to accept it. That's the conspiracy. You know, somebody's behind the curtain who's way cooler than them calling the shots.
Yeah, and there's got to be. There's got to be.
Right.
One thing I want to offer as you guys are talking, I was making some notes. I'd like to try to weigh in, and hopefully this makes sense. But I keep reading McLuhan, and you know, we're all. Is it safe to say that the 3 of us, we could say that we're reactionaries, as in we point up as far as where the ideals are, right? Yeah. Safe to say.
I could say
so.
That,
yeah. So like in my mind, I do see an opportunity. And perhaps this is my inner high school teacher talking, but I see an opportunity to very much explain to people, if the medium is the message, then what is the medium that allows for Epstein and the Epstein files? So modern democracy in a mercantile, money obsessed commercial culture selects for the dregs of humanity. You don't say. I mean, the selection pressure of our system elevates the sociopaths. Oh, really? That should never have been surprising to anybody who's thinking this shit through, right?
Let me push back on that for a second, real quick. I think.
Okay, sure, absolutely.
I want to throw something else in there, right? That I think is important in context, right? So many people, when they talk about Epstein, they say to themselves, this reveals what our elite is like. And we're kind of doing that here a little bit too. See, they're all schlubs. But this doesn't reveal what the elite is like. This is not a huge group of people. You know,
Epstein knew fame. He sought out people who are well known to the public. So everybody, the public knows, that they're done with Epstein. Like, oh, he must have known everybody. But there's thousands and now millions of other people out there who have different, roles and.
Librarian, talk closer into your mic. You're
There's so many people out there who are in power who had nothing to do with Epstein. So many people. I mean, he probably got rejected by people 1,000 times for the one guy who accepted him. To say that his behavior characterizes all of our elites, or that our society is characterized by this, or that
all right.
I get where people try to draw that conclusion, but I don't think it's fair. I'm not saying they're all awesome, but when you think of it, and I've heard that discourse before, like the sociopath discourse, like, oh, to be successful in finance, you have to be a sociopath. If you look at the actual classic definition of a sociopath, they're just these losers. Like, they're people like Ted Bundy, who couldn't hold a job, who were versatile criminals. They were just burglars and thieves and liars and stuff like that. The guys who succeed and move to the top of the heap doing that stuff are disciplined, focused. They got to have some modicum of honesty for anybody to be willing to make deals with them. They got to be hardworking. They got to be brave, to roll the dice on billion-dollar deals. I mean, they have to have a lot of qualities in a lot of ways to be that. Jeffrey Epstein didn't have those qualities because he was a grifter. He wasn't really legit, But
right.
So I'm not trying to say that our elites are awesome or they're good or anything like that. I just don't think.
No.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I think you're right. I'm glad you spoke up. That's an absolute perspective or an absolutely correct perspective. That corrects my flawed one for sure. The next part of this, and this is kind of just for me personally, my perspective on the whole thing has been very much to approach it slow, because I keep thinking about how difficult it's become to understand what's going on in reality, especially after how widespread AI has become, and how I look at the internet as a giant incomprehensible library of babble. This kind of thing is almost, it's not tailor-made obviously, but like, gosh, what a dangerous kind of thing to have in such a corrupted, vast, bad information environment, where it's hard enough to find out what the truth is. Then you drop something like this in, and it's just like, fuck, I don't even want to touch it. Just no. I mean, there's nothing good that can come out of engaging with this besides the most classical truths that we've known forever anyway. So
right,
it's just like,
right.
It strikes me as just, it is tapping into things that I do not want in my soul.
Right.
There's nothing here I can learn that's going to help me that I can't figure out somewhere else.
I will say this. I don't know if you guys have had this experience. I'm on X, I'm on Substack. I had seen almost nothing in the way of like AI, Epstein, deep fake type stuff. I was expecting that to just be exploding. People like photoshopping Epstein with this guy or that guy and it going viral or something. So either Elon Musk is really cracking down on that, or for whatever reason, people are just detecting the slop really well and not spreading it around. So
that's actually really interesting, because I noticed the same thing.
Isn't it possible we're not detecting it? I mean, how would we know?
Well, I mean, I'm not seeing like any photos. Like, no new photo just dropped in Epstein and Ted Cruz.
Okay.
Like,
all right. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. No, you're actually right. What you said, Librarian, was interesting. It made me think of a conversation I had many years ago. One of my acquaintances was a police detective in California. So he worked for a big police department. And I remember one day I asked them, like, what is, like, I was thinking of becoming a police officer myself at that time. I was like flirting with the idea, and I obviously decided not to. And what he said actually kind of pushed me away from doing that career. And he said his biggest disappointment and the biggest realization that like kind of ruined the whole job for him was that there were no masterminds, that he realized that he worked in prisons and he worked in different jails and he worked, a lot of like murder trials. And he said that all the criminals were lame. You know, they were just basically just psychotic losers that, you know, the idea of like this Hannibal Lecter mastermind was a fiction, you know, and the reason a lot of these guys never got caught for a while was because they were so chaotic, but they weren't these intelligent masterminds dodging the police and leaving clues and that kind of stuff, except maybe the Zodiac. But they were all just psychos and losers. And being psychos and losers is what kept them from being caught for so long, because nobody was looking in that psycho loser area, or they were just drifters and stuff. And he said most people, you go to a jail or a prison and you talk to all these people, 99.9% of them are just absolute retards, you know, and they were super low IQ, and they're, you know, most murders are just crimes of passion or just crimes of low IQ, lack of impulse control, and it's boring. You know, there's no Sherlock Holmesian detective work that's done and that kind of stuff. They all turn themselves in, or their like best friend turns them in, or they commit a crime in front of a camera or something absolutely dumb like that. And it's absolutely not this mastermind kind of world. And
Moriarty is fiction, unfortunately.
Right, you know, it's Hannibal Lecter, you know, type of stuff. It's fiction, and you're right. It's like there's a desire for us to square off against, you know, Patrick Bateman. We like, you know, freaking people like Epstein saw themselves as Patrick Bateman. You know, that's the kind of stuff that they imagine themselves, because a lot of us want to be a Patrick Bateman type character, but that's just not the reality of the world. That's not how things work. And I think that there is a level, and if there is a sinister thought process in a way, is back to McLuhan of the medium is the message, and this idea of releasing just thousands of files for every single person to, you know, it's kind of a proof that you can't do democracy, you can't do law, you know, you can't do justice through democracy in a way, because you release these thousands and thousands of files, and everybody from, you know, from us to tinfoil Joe on the street to, you know, Candace Owens and all those kind of people are looking through these files, and it becomes a God of the gaps type thing where everybody sees what they want to see in there. You know, they in the in between spaces, in the blackouts and stuff, that's where they see. I mean, I saw something where they accused Tony Hawk, the skater, of being an Epstein Island guy, you know, and he's like, no, my wedding picture was taken by this guy named Harry Epstein, who's like a known sports photographer, you know, so like no relations. I don't know what you guys are talking about, you know, and he like dropped a bunch of like proof that he was never, you know, and it's this kind of stuff is just insane. And then in the files themselves, you have a bunch of stuff that's completely out there, you know. It's whenever you have a high profile situation like this, you're going to have the crazies, you know. And in a way, it's almost like, yes, there's a lot of truth in there, I think, but it's so muddled with insanity that we might not ever really understand the truth. And maybe that was the whole intention of just dropping thousands of, you know, redacted files like this, you know.
They dropped it because everybody was clamoring for it. Donald Trump loved it.
Speaking to the microphone, Mark, can't hear you, man.
They released it because Donald Trump loves the internet. The internet was telling him to do it, so he did it. And you know, the thing, like, so what you're saying about like the way people just like pull all these stories out of it. I had somebody today like, see, there's an email where he's talking to Chuck Schumer and he's telling Chuck Schumer how he should vote, and Chuck Schumer is listening to him, and so that means he was controlling Chuck Schumer. It's like, okay, so you got that email exchange. The ones you don't have are like the 10,000 other emails Chuck Schumer is exchanging with all these other people. You know, the head of the teachers union, the head of the pro-abortion group, the head of the, you know, and they're all telling him how to vote. You know, and he's soliciting their advice. Like, there's the idea that Epstein is uniquely controlling him is the impression you get if you only saw these files, but it's not how power actually works.
Talk a little bit louder, man.
It's not how power actually works, you know.
Right.
So you're saying it wasn't the Jewish mind blazer?
Yeah,
that wasn't.
You know,
That wasn't
the Jews were telling, you know, like why
it wasn't the space laser?
Yeah.
My mistake. Okay, all right.
Why does Mossad need Jeffrey Epstein to email Chuck Schumer? Why doesn't Mossad just email him? Or why doesn't Netanyahu just call him up? I don't understand what function Jeffrey Epstein is supposed to fill in this Jewish conspiracy. Like,
Right.
I had a guy today who was a complete schizo saying that Jeffrey Epstein has secretly been running the Western world for the last 40 years, which would be since he was 26 years old. And you just see these words go by and you understand, like, this guy's doing podcasts. He's got 2,000 followers, not a ton, but people are listening to this dude, and he's a nut.
Right.
Like a complete nut.
I saw those comments.
Yeah.
That's what I was alluding to at the beginning of this conversation.
Yeah. But I hate to like end on a note here, but in a few minutes I got to probably dip out here.
Oh no, it's okay. We understand.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Yeah, like, look, you have a pretty good profile on Substack and on X. You have lots of followers. A lot of people read your essays, and I can guarantee that you are probably getting inundated with crazy stuff all the time.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
Like, people probably comment and leave you the craziest stuff, you know, and you don't even think about it. You just like ignore it and just delete it. I mean, our profile is not as big as yours, and I get some of the craziest comments on some of the stuff I post. You know, I'll post something completely like tame about something, and I get some unhinged like rant about the Jews, or some unhinged rant about paganism or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? You're just crazy. I'm just going to ignore this, you know? And, you know, I can only imagine what a politician, even like a local politician, gets, you know, like the amount of like insane mail that emails and, you know, online you know, like stuff that they get is just ludicrous, you know? So that's where I'm like, come on, guys, if you have any type of profile on the internet, you know very well that the internet is filled with crazy people. And that's why me and Phisto have been, you know, like this episode is going to accuse us of being, you know, Mossad agents ourselves. You know, for sure, because we're not
Librarian
going on
exposed.
Librarian exposed, Mossad agent.
Mossad, if you're listening, my checking account number is
yeah,
that's
big too.
like, dude,
0003.
Yeah, if we get like 2,000 subscriptions in the next like 2 days after that we post this one, we know that the Mossad was listening. Perfect. You know,
dear Mossad, if you want to buy ad space,
yeah,
you know, like
I will shill for all the Mossad if they, you know. But yeah, it's ludicrous and it's insanity. Anyways, Librarian, thanks for joining us, man. We really appreciate it. We love having you on, and I love all your essays.
Thank you. I love being here. I wish I had like infinite time.
No, I get it. Very busy guy.
Well, that's why we need the Goy Bucks, so you can have unlimited time to talk to us.
Yeah,
it'd be perfect.
Yeah, he's actually going to cash in his check right now. The reason his audio, the reason his audio was kind of going in and out was because his phone was downloading all the Bitcoin. You know, it was doing all the straight Bitcoin, you know. But yeah, I mean, thanks so much for joining us. It's a pleasure having you. Hopefully we'll have you back in a few months when the next guy on the right decides to turn against us, right? And yeah, man, thanks. Keep writing, dude. You're fucking amazing.
Thank you very much for having me once again, and I will see you guys later.
All right, good night, man.
Cheers, sir.
For the rest of you guys, I still have some stuff I want to talk about specifically. We've got some more time. Phisto, you got another 20 minutes or so?
Yeah, man.
I wanted to talk about
you, brother.
Just for me. Fix your microphone too. You guys are boomers, dude. You guys.
Sorry, what? It's right by my face where it always is, man.
Maybe it's my mixing. I wanted to talk about.
Guys, can you hear me? Hello.
Yeah,
Shut
we
up,
can hear
retard.
you.
Shut up, retard.
And we're not done yet, guys. So keep listening. I want to talk about natalism. I want to talk about babies. Okay.
You want to talk about babies?
I want to talk about babies.
Babies are great. Babies are fantastic.
All right. So
Everyone should have at least 5 of them.
I was at my daughter's dance class the other day, and I was sitting there with my wife, and I was, you know, just kind of thinking about things, and I shot off a note, a Substack note, which was basically like, I was like, so I was thinking about boomers, and I was thinking how, like, every time there's a protest in my area, my wife or I drive by it and we look at these, you know, no kings, these ICE protests and stuff, and it's just all boomers, you know, it's all boomers. And we're just like, oh man, these boomers are ruining the country. They're, you know, they're just so disconnected from the world, you know. And I was thinking, like, what causes this, right? What causes? And I think a big thing is that, you know, they don't have grandchildren, or they're estranged from their families. They're basically very close to where I live. There's this boomer retirement community, and it's notorious for having the pineapple parties and stuff. And it's just, you know, these people are lost, and they have no meaning in their lives, so they adopt these kind of extreme 1969 boomer kind of mindset. They're reliving their youth through these protests and that type of thing, and you can
Right.
see that. But I was thinking, I'm like, man, we are looking at what looks like, and I'm actually kind of worried about this. This is my concern. I'm saying this now, is that our generation, the millennials, are aging. We are entering our middle age, right? We are truly becoming middle age now, right? I'm turning 43 this year. I'm an old man now,
Yeah.
right? I'm like,
Yeah.
I think I don't know, what do you consider middle age, like past 40? But you know,
I'd say past 40. Yeah,
Yeah.
like mid 40s solidly, you're in middle age for sure.
Right. I'm an elder millennial. Okay.
Yeah.
And I went online and I looked up, well, what's a millennial? And the millennial definition is from 1981 to 1996. Right. And I've got some, I'm kind of skeptical of that definition. I think that there's a big difference between, for example, millennials like me that are on the earlier side, that grew up with no cell phones, no real, you know, internet, and then the ones that were like my youngest brother, who was born right around the cutoff. So he's kind of a Gen Z millennial almost, where, you know, he grew up where he had cell phones and internet his entire teenage years.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and you know, and social media and that kind of stuff, growing up in high school. So we didn't have that in high school at all. So I was thinking a lot about that. And the question I asked myself is, like, are we having children? Like, are we having children, right? And I made a list, and this is a non-scientific, is not a, you know, Pew poll or anything like that. I sat down with my wife, and we just kind of named all our friends growing up, you know, like everybody we knew, like all the couples we knew, all the friends we had, my best friends and stuff. And then I went home and I went through like Facebook and Instagram and all my old accounts, and I kind of like, I made a tally. And what I broke it up by, I broke it up by millennials that had 0 children, that had 1 child, and that had 2+, right? And I was actually very shocked at the number, right? It was basically something like only 45% of all the millennials I know have had 1 or more children, right? The 0 children completely overtakes the other number of kids, right? And then I made another list of like all my close high school friends and elementary, you know, all the kids I grew up with, right? The guys I used to play Dungeons and Dragons with when I was little. And that number matched the other number, you know? So basically, I'm looking at something like over 50% of all millennials that I personally know do not have children, right? And then out of the other group, most of them only have 1 child. So we are entering into a world where very soon, guys, like, you know, girls born in my generation, like 1983, 84, 85, are going to become aged out of having children, you know, without like significant medical assistance, like IVF and that kind of stuff. So it seems like, and then the ones that did have kids, like me, had children older. I was 35 when my daughter was born, you know, and I'm only on 1 child, unfortunately. And I don't think I'm going to have another one because I'm feeling tired and old, right? So
Yeah.
the question is, if you look at statistics, right, you look at statistics from the boomer generation, I think only like 20% or less of the boomers did not have children. And then the number was not much lower or higher from the Gen Xers. So we're looking at a massive generation that has no children. So what's going to happen? What are all those crazy ass women going to do when they have nothing to do. What is the political upheaval, the cultural upheaval we're going to face in the next 2 decades? It's terrifying when you think about it. Right? And
is it though?
I don't know.
I mean, because is it going to be all of them versus all of the people that had kids plus their kids? And all of them are going to have the young people on their side, right?
Right. I mean,
especially the young men. I mean, all the young men are on that side, right?
Right. I mean, I don't know. It's
maybe really, that's terrifying, but yeah, I don't know.
You know what I'm noticing, and without hopefully nobody that I'm going to mention is listening, but I have a very close millennial friend, that was very liberal in her mindset and said, I'm not going to have kids. I just want to get married and travel and do the marriage and travel thing, and hard no on having kids and all this stuff. And then got married about 7-8 years ago. And of course they hit the 7-year mark, and now she's unfulfilled and divorce. I have another friend couple that same thing. Well, we don't want to have kids. We don't want to do anything. And they, go on multiple vacations every year, all the stuff I can't afford because I do have kids. Right. And you're just doing all the fun stuff and Disneyland and all the cool stuff. And they've kind of aged out of children. They're just too old. And the husband is having a freak out and having an affair with a younger girl that has a kid of her own. And it's just all kinds of stuff like that. Right. And I'm like, oh, it's so predictable in a way, like, and it's kind of to me, I think that we're going to see a level of psychological trauma or psychological pain that we haven't seen before, that we did not see in the Gen Xers, and we're going to deal with it. Now, on the flip side, I did a quick cursory overview, and the majority of people I know that do have children are actually Gen Zers, right? And that's a positive thing. That's me. That this is blue pilling, right? This is a clear pilling, right? White pilling. Sorry, I got my pills wrong, guys. I'm sorry about
good
my
pilling.
Good pilling. White pilling, right?
Whatever.
I know a lot of Gen Zers that do have children and have multiple children, right? As we're talking right now, a friend of ours and one that constantly joins us in the chat, he's at the hospital right now. His wife is in labor, and he's a Gen Zer, and awesome. Keep him in our prayers, right? And he's about to have his third child, right? Another friend of mine who's in his early 20s, his wife is due to go into labor in the next few days, also a Gen Zer. And it's just, I think that our generation is going to be I don't know, man. Our generation is going to be a tough one because we're going to have to, protect our children that we do have. And also, I think our goal should be to foster an environment that we need to reject the boomerisms where they became selfish and they focused on their entire life. And we need to build when we do anything, when we put forward anything, it should be towards the goal of the younger generation having children. All right.
Yeah.
We have to accept that. All right. And anybody that's lived in California, for example, knows that the problem with California, and anybody that's moved out of California that has kids knows that California is absolutely child unfriendly. And the reason it's child unfriendly is because a bunch of boomers are selfish. They just want to party. They just want to have a good time. So everything, the lowest priority is to make it, livable for people with families. Like you go to the park with your kid in California and you feel guilty that your kid might be loud at the park and ruin the picnic of some elder millennials that are trying to have their little hipster picnic or something like that. Right. And so that was one of the main reasons we moved out of there. And I think our job as millennials, right, is that we have to foster an environment that makes it to where the Gen Z and the younger generations want to have kids and want to have kids young. And we are there and we make it easy for them to do so, right? Because I don't think it's about money. All right. I don't think it's about money. I used to think that like the reason people don't have kids is because of the finances and stuff, which is completely nonsense when you think about it, because poor people have all kinds of kids, right? I think it's really about community. I think that in a world that is geared towards, material pleasure for older people, this kind of wanton consumerism and, just the eternal Margaritaville, that's an unfriendly environment for child rearing, and I think that what we need to do is we need to build a situation where we're there when we help out the young generation when they have kids. You might not have a kid yourself, but you should be there for your friend and make sure that they get food, or they have, you watch their kids when they need some help, or help them around the house and that kind of stuff, right? And I don't know, man. Like, I think that's something that we need to talk about in our circles, which is how do we make it to where Gen Z people want to have kids? All right, that should be our number one priority in our churches, in our forums, in everything. Okay, that's the key in my opinion. What do you think about that?
No, I think it's 100% correct. It goes into some of the changes we made over at my Substack, The Partisan, with the writing that we're going to be doing, that whole scouring of the Shire idea. I myself do not have children yet, although God willing, I will. John, I think he's got his fourth on the way, and Isaiah, God willing, does not have children yet. And for us, it's all about, John, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? What do you need us to think through, man? Like, how can we support you? And a lot of the writing on the Substack is going to come out of that perspective. There's very little advice that I can give John, right? Because he's actually got the family. He's actually got the kids, right? However, I do know things about the world, and I can certainly help him when he needs it, right? I think like going to the Republican Party meeting here in town recently, they're all old. Like, they're all decades above me. I am a young person, and I'm going to bring young people there, and I'm going to get them plugged in and involved because that is best for them. I keep joking with my students, guys, there's crowns and gutters. Go get them. There's crowns and gutters. Let me show you where they are. I'm not going to pick up the crown, but I'm going to point out where they are and help people pick them up. This year is very exciting for me because it's my first year where I'm going to have freshmen walk the stage as graduates. And I've started joking with them saying, hey guys, if you're still in town, guess what? Like, you can talk to me. You can say hi to me. Hell, when you walk across that stage, you earn the right to call me by my first name. And when they have problems and when they have life, I tell them, I'm your teacher forever. I'm not going to give them advice. I'm not going to teach them things. They're going to say, hey, I need help with this. And I'm going to say, what do you need me to do? What do you want? How can I? And that's it. You see what I mean? It's being oriented.
I'm there for you.
Yes,
I'm there for you.
Yes, it is. Whatever you need, I will drop whatever I'm doing, and I will fucking kill and bury whoever I need to get it done. And that's it. It is ride or die for the young. Even if the young are wrong, I'm still going to be ride or die for them, because at the end of the day, how else are they going to learn? Like, for example, something interesting with the Florida governor race. One of the guy. Thank you, Zwart. Yes, I am basically the guy from Starship Troopers. 100%. I am Mr. Dubois. We're gonna kill all the bugs. No, but like with the Florida governor race, for example, there's a lot of talk about one of the candidates, and the thing people keep pointing out is that the dude's only 30 years old, and they're just like, that's it. That's like these are the people you have to start looking at, and you have to start supporting them because they are going to seize power. They have. I mean, I've got one kid in my debate class who he carries himself as a leader. He carries himself as one with authority, and he will eventually just seize power. He's going to just strike, and he's going to crush everyone in his way. Everybody fights, nobody quits. Absolutely.
Right. Absolutely. I think that in a way, because we are talking about like right-wing ideas and that kind of stuff, and this is going to sound sacrilegious. You guys get ready for this. Alex is going to drop some sacrilegiousness. I think that we have to abandon some ideas of individualism. Okay. I think we have to abandon this idea that we are owed, you know, that we are owed a life of comfort in our old age. Okay. And that has been the goal, this material goal of like, I'm going to work, and I'm going to get comfort. And then I'm just going to Margaritaville. Right. And that has become the boomer secular heaven, the forever retirement, this idea that like, I'm going to bust my butt and sell stuff or do this kind of stuff. And then I'm going to go to Margaritaville and I'm going to get drunk every day on delicious, Mai Tais and listen to crappy music. And I'm going to have pineapple parties with all the other geezers in Margaritaville. Right. And we have to accept, and I look at this as from a Christian perspective, that I'm going to live a life of service. My goal, if I have one thing I pray, if I have one thing I pray for, is I pray for that my kid will have kids, and I will be like alive and healthy enough to be able to help her with everything possible. Okay. That's the only thing I pray for out of this life. Okay. This is the only thing I want. I want to be healthy enough to be able to be there for my child when she's a mother and for her kids. That's all I want. Okay. I don't want comfort. I don't want anything. I just want to be there and be able to help out. And I think that that's our calling in life. Okay. And we cannot be like, oh, we're millennials and we got screwed by the housing market, blah, blah, blah. You know what? Yeah, we did. Okay. We did. All right. You know what? We did. The world we live, this is the world we live in, to quote Gandalf to Frodo, right? We don't choose the time we live in. Right. And that's the reality of it. But what we do choose is how we live a life of charity and service. And I think that we as millennials are called to show the charity to our younger generations that we were not shown ourselves. All right. And we need to get rid of this idea that I'm going to become a superstar, that I'm going to become the greatest podcaster ever, that I'm going to be doing this, and that I'm going to become, because all those roads lead to Epstein lifestyles, basically, that's all you get. That's the peak of it right there. And it's like, if God wants me to drop dead tomorrow, then I drop dead tomorrow, and I'll do it with a smile on my face. But what I'm asking, what I'm asking is, I want to be healthy enough to be able to help out the people younger than me, to make sure that they have a better life than what I did. And
yeah, I like what you had to say about kind of the warning of Epstein. There cannot be another generation like that. There will not be another generation like that, or we will literally get everything we deserve. 100%. I mean, us, even one millennial waking up and going, yeah, I'm not going to be a fucking shithead anymore. That is a huge victory. And the more of us repent, the better off everybody's going to be. The softer the landing is going to be.
Right. And the thing is, though, when people say like, demons or whatever, demons run the Epstein thing and not demons, they're right. But demons are pathetic. Demons are losers. They're pathetic, disgusting creatures. They're not cool. They're not powerful. They deserve to be put into pigs and tossed off a cliff. Right? They're weak, and we know that we won. Okay, deep down we know that we win. Embracing a life of wanton pleasure is accepting defeat. Right? It's accepting just complete and total failure. And we need to teach the younger generations and take them away from the idea that like what they want to be is to be like YouTube influencers or NFL superstars, or the world of that Super Bowl halftime show. That's disgusting. And then we need to teach them that, like, is that what you want? You want to be a dude that has HIV and is just rubbing his junk on like paid women? Like, how is that any different than Epstein? It's the same stuff. right? It's disgusting. Or the stuff that, like, how dare right-wing dudes be like, oh, Epstein and Jews, but then they listen to what's his name, that disgusting what's his name, that influencer guy with the Bugattis and stuff and all that nonsense,
Oh, Tate.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
how is that dude any different than Epstein? That's the same thing. He's just another pimp, right? And he's right wing. He's based. No, he's disgusting, right? Just like the Epstein people were. They're all disgusting demons, right? They're pathetic in thrall of slavery, of their passions, right? You know what's amazing? I'll tell you what's amazing, guys. When I go to church and I pull up in the church parking lot with my wife and daughter, and my daughter runs out because there's like 20 children running around, playing before liturgy, running around, or like when liturgy's over, all the kids are out there and they're all playing and kicking a ball around and running around and just drawing and laughing and stuff. That's amazing. Okay. That is the beautifulest thing you can have in the world. Right. And what's amazing during liturgy when we're doing prayers for people, and our deacon and our priest is, saying, so-and-so and the child to be born to her, so-and-so and the child to be born to her, so-and-so and the child to be born to her. I want that to be like 2 hours long. I don't know if you guys do that during your liturgy. Like, whenever that part comes and we're praying for the people and the children to be born of them, that is what I want to hear, because we live in a world that is so selfish and so messed up because we made it that way. We allowed, we made the choices to put the value on things, and the previous generations to put the value on things that don't matter, that are temporal and lame. And it is lame. It all feels lame. The internet feels lame. Like, all this stuff feels just lame, dude. It just feels so lame.
This will make you smile. I want to say at last liturgy we had like 15 catechumens.
Right. That's so
Came
cool.
up for the blessing. I felt so bad for the father. Real old. He's just rolling through the room like bam, 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 bam. It was awesome.
Right. Oh, a few months ago, we baptized like 30 people, and it was amazing.
Yeah, brother.
We've got another we got another giant group ready for April, right before Pascha, and it's going to be amazing, and that's what matters in life, man.
Yeah,
and
it really does.
One of the things my priest says a lot, he says, oh, don't ever come to me and say, oh, I'm a bad human. I'm just a bad person. And he goes, yeah, I know, everybody, we're all bad humans. That's we're not human. We're not human.
You're in the perfect spot, sir. You are exactly where you need to be. You're a trash human. Come on in. Let's go.
Yeah, we are we are all less than human. That is what sin is, that we are less than human. And every day, if we are aimed in the right direction, we're striving to become human, right? There's only been one perfect human, and that was Christ.
Correct.
And we are not perfect. Okay. We are failed humans. We are deficient humans. And our goal is to strive to that. And I think that, I looked at these numbers, and I look at my friends that I know that are my age and they have no kids. And I want to cry for them in a way. People say, oh, I'm having fun. I'm like selling beer. I'm getting drunk. It's like, it's sad. It's not good.
It's going to be the most beautiful thing when I give a graduate a ride to church.
That'd be awesome.
That's going to be such a fucking cool moment. Hey, mister, where should I go for church? Get in the car. Just get in the fucking car. Stop asking questions. Let's go. And the best part about being me, the best part about being the kind of social studies teacher I am, that is the conversation. I mean, I'm blessed with rapport with students where I could just get in the fucking car. Let's go. And they'd be like, all right. I mean, it would just be awesome. So great. Soon, I can feel it. But anyway.
So I think that, in closing, I think that what we need to do is we do need to brainstorm, and, in all these conversations we have online about all this nonsense and all this stuff, a little bit less obsessing about, paganism and Epstein and all this stuff, and more obsessing about how do we make a world where people can have kids? How do we make the people at our churches have kids? How, we need to, in a way, reject being caught up in these machines, because even all these scandals, all this stuff, they're just elements of the machine. Right. And we need to reject that and look outside the window, open the window, get that fresh air, and go, what am I going to do that's going to make my neighborhood, my world around me better for young people to have families and have children? All right. Not what the value of my house is going to be in 20 years so I can sell it and move to Margaritaville, but what am I going to do? Am I going to vote on the local board to build better parks? Am I going to vote to have police that protects these parks and make sure there's no junkies around? Am I going to improve the school districts? That's the kind of stuff that we need to really be talking about, not this nonsense about, all this stuff. The reason Epstein happens is because we don't do that. Okay.
Right.
That's the thing.
Power abhors a vacuum.
Epstein happens because the majority of boomers want to be Epstein. Okay.
Correct.
That's the damn truth. Okay.
He's not the king of the world. He's not the king of the world, but he may be prince of the boomers.
Right. That's exactly what's going on. Everybody wants to be Patrick Bateman, and instead of ending up a cool Patrick Bateman, you end up Epstein, and it sucks and it's gross and it's disgusting and it's one-way ticket to hell for yourself and everybody around you that you bring into that world. So yeah, I think that's what we need to do. We need to realize that that's not, the future we want, and we need to reject the Margaritaville. Okay. Yes. All right. Because I was thinking, right? I was thinking, like, sometimes, like, even these conversations about, like, oh, how come right wingers don't support like movies and stuff? That seems to be like the thing today on X. It's like a big thing of like, how come? Maybe the question we need to ask ourselves: are movies even worth supporting?
No,
right?
They're not. They're not.
Is the movie the medium itself, right? To go back to McLuhan, is the medium of the movie something that is edifying? Can you actually make a right-wing movie? I mean, yeah, I know you can. All right. For example, like, I think, there's a lot of good right-wing movies, right? But I feel like to a certain degree that the medium itself is ill. It's a wrong medium, right? It might not be worth it. Who cares? Who cares about all this stuff? Okay. Who cares about winning, right? You don't win by having movies or that kind of stuff. You win by having children. You win by raising them right. And I don't know, man. I'm kind of tired of it all. I'm kind of tired of all this nonsense and this conversations and stuff, right? And I think that we need to refocus ourselves towards a forward momentum away from this kind of stuff. Anyways, guys, thank you for joining us. It was wonderful having Librarian on, and we'll have him on soon, and we'll have more guests coming on. And thank you for all the guys listening to us live. And we're going to be
guys, thanks. It was a lot of fun tonight. 100%.
Releasing this episode, probably tomorrow when I get around to editing it. It takes time, guys. It takes me some time. I got to fix some of the audio. And next week we'll probably have a me and Phisto episode. I don't know. We'll talk about probably the next nonsense that came up, right? You know what I mean? And
yeah, man.
And if you guys enjoy the show, please like, share, and subscribe. Do me a favor, please, and go like and subscribe on YouTube also, because I am starting to get worried about being a Substack only kind of publication, because Substack is not very much pleasing me lately. I'm starting to see cracks in their free speech kind of, that's another topic. But it'd be great if we, diversify our portfolio, if that makes sense. So I would definitely appreciate it if you guys like and subscribe to YouTube, and also on Spotify and Apple and all the different things. But YouTube's the big one, because that's kind of my fallback in case Substack goes full retard on us, which I wouldn't be surprised if they do soon. So, yeah, guys, wonderful episode. Great conversation in the chat. Great comments. You guys have a good night, and I hope you enjoyed my intro music, by the way. I tried to share it, but it didn't really work out very well. It's not going to be in the actual download because it's a copyright thing, so I can't really put it in there. I can stream it.
Don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone.
I'm gonna get the
quiet
Italian fascists coming after me for sharing their music.
Is that what that was? I was trying to pick up the vibe. I was like, kind of sounds like Franco, but I was like, that's not Spanish.
It was Dionysio. It was an Italian neo folk band from. I mean, they're still current. They they still have stuff. I'll share it in the links. It's
Yeah,
it's
it was
pretty
great.
good
I
band.
loved it.
A lot of cool stuff. I like a lot of neo folk. Like I like Rome and
Yeah,
a
man.
lot of these other bands. All right, guys. Good night. Good night, Phisto. Good night, everybody. You guys have a wonderful night, and I'll see you guys next week, same time. Good night.